Modern woodworkers are sometimes confused when I ask them if they've ever used a router plane. They hear the word plane and they immediately think it's an old-timey tool that has no use in the modern workshop. After all, we have electric routers and we have racks full of bits. Why would we want a manual tool from 100 years ago? Well, I'm here to teach you that a router plane may be one of the most useful tools in the shop if you just give it a chance. Don't let the name fool you. It's really not a router nor a plane, at least not in the way modern woodworkers understand those words. To today's woodworkers, a router is a tool that creates a fancy edge profile. In the old-timey days, molding planes did that, not router planes. This is not a manual version of this. Neither is it another in a long line of surfacing planes that must be fiddled with to get those wispy thin shavings that are so popular among today's woodworkers. Think of a router plane as a tricked out chisel. You use chisels, right? Even if you plug most everything else in, you still occasionally pull out a chisel to do some tasks that power tools just can't do as well. That's what a router plane is. It's a precise, micro-adjustable, depth-controlled chisel that can be the perfect complement to your big, powerful machines. In this video, I'll give you 4 real-world examples that are relevant to small shop power tool woodworkers like yourself. But before you dismiss this video, because you don't own a router plane, I'm going to put a link in the description below to a guide on our website for making your own fully functioning router plane from a scrap of wood and a little hardware. Because after you watch this video, you're going to want one. Now let's get started. When you cut a dado or a groove with a power tool, particularly a table saw or a router table, it's difficult to ensure a consistent depth of cut across the workpiece. A slight cup in your material can cause the depth of your groove to be shallower at the center or at the ends. The momentum of a table saw dado set can also slightly lift the workpiece off the table, especially at the beginning of the cut, and that further affects its depth. If you want your joinery to be as accurate as possible, you should follow up your power tool with a router plane. Simply set the cutter to the desired depth and shave away the high points in the bottom of the groove. If you're cleaning up a dado, which is cut across the grain, you might also use a knife to sever the fibers on either side so the router plane can remove them cleanly. Taking the time to clean up your dados and grooves will really pay off when you assemble your project. A rabbet on the end of the workpiece may need flattening for the same reason as a dado or groove, but the process is a bit different because half the body of the plane must hang off the end of the workpiece. To prevent tipping, use a pivoting action, holding the plane firmly against the surface with one hand while turning the tool into the cut with the other. After most of the high spots are removed, you may clean up any remaining fibers along the shoulder. Again, a knife will help sever those fibers cleanly. Tenons are also easy to fine-tune with a router plane so they fit properly within the mortise. If it fits too tight, you might shave a little bit off each cheek. Remember, tenons are often centered on the end of a workpiece. What you do to one cheek, you'll repeat on the opposite side to keep it centered. This also doubles the effect, so only small amounts of material should be removed at a time. The precise nature of a router plane, especially one equipped with a micro adjuster, makes it the ideal tool for this delicate task. Another way to adjust rabbets and tenons with a router plane is to trim 2 at the same time. By placing them end to end, you support the full sole of the tool so you may make straight cuts rather than pivoting in that circular motion. One of the handiest uses for a router plane is cutting mortises for hinges, because a router plane is easier and more precise to balance on the edge of a workpiece than an electric router can be. Again, I like to sever the fibers with a knife all the way around the hinge. Then I use 2 hinges to help set the depth of the cut. If your plane has a depth stop, you may set it and then back the cutter off a bit so you can cut to the full depth in a couple light passes. Depth stops also make it easy to quickly repeat the same cut for multiple hinges, something a conventional chisel lacks. Of course, router planes aren't just for hinge mortises and fine-tuning joinery. They're great for cutting any shallow recess. They're great for inlays and all sorts of other tasks that even power tool woodworkers can appreciate. And once in a while, it's just nice to use a tool that doesn't plug in, doesn't make a lot of noise and dust, but can still get the job done quickly and without special skills. If you have one collecting dust somewhere, get it out and try it for yourself. Or build your own. It's a fun little project that will pay off for many years to come. I'll link to those instructions below. See you next time. If you sharpen your tools by hand, do yourself a favor. Try one of Trend's diamond stones. You can start with a card, but before long, you'll want a full bend stone because these things cut fast, they stay perfectly flat, and you can go from stone to strop to wood and be back to work in under a minute. I'll link to my favorites in the notes below this video.